Are you ready to take your message, your business, and your life to the next level?
Want to learn from someone with more than a decade of experience, training tens of thousands of people from all around the world?
Hi, Cliff. This is Pauline from Auckland, New Zealand.
John from Calgary, Alberta.
Amy Porterfield.
Michael Hyatt.
Dan here from Dunedin, New Zealand.
Ray Edwards.
Mark Mason. Mike Stelzner.
Pat from Smart Passive Income.
It's Darren from Melbourne, Australia.
Now is the time to live the life of your dreams and do the work you feel most called to do in the world.
Welcome to the Cliff Ravenscraft Show.
Here's your host, Cliff Ravenscraft.
Welcome back, my friend. In today's episode, I am going to tell you the number one technology online tool software solution that has helped me take my online business to the next level above every and all other technology solutions put together. And no, I am not talking about an AI platform. Although, while I'm getting ready to play for you a conversation about this tool, which, by the way, let me just tell you, it is Kajabi. Kajabi does include some pretty incredible tools with AI built in, and we didn't even go into whatsoever in that layer of our conversation. And you'll understand why when you hear my entire conversation that I had with my great friend, bringing him back to the Cliff Ravenscraft Show yet once again, Ray Edwards. We talk about our own experience of what our businesses, online businesses, course creator businesses, digital product businesses, what our businesses were like prior to using Kajabi, and what features of Kajabi have radically transformed our own experience, where the monthly cost, or we pay annually, of Kajabi is a total no-brainer. In fact, if you've ever considered using Kajabi for your online business to host your website, to host your written blog content, your email marketing and email newsletter, all of your automations and sales funnels and your landing pages, everything related to your business. If you've ever considered using Kajabi, but the one concern that you have is, man, am I really going to pay that much each month or each year for this software solution? This one conversation should completely eliminate any limiting belief that you might have about the cost associated, the very low and reasonable cost associated with using Kajabi for practically every major aspect of your online business needs. Check this out right here, right now, this conversation with my great friend, Ray Edwards. Today is a special day. We're going to be talking about an online tool that Ray Edwards told me about in the fall of 2015. And at the time, I'm thinking, Ray, are you serious? This tool is $1,297. And you're talking about it in our Green Room Mastermind, and it sounds so appealing. It seems to be like lots of good reasons why I should check it out, but $1,297, really, Ray? Do you really think it's a good idea? I mean, is this company still going to be around in 3 or 4 or 5 years from now? I just don't know. I want to pull the trigger. I want to jump in on this lifetime deal. Ray, what is this tool that you were talking about in the autumn of 2015, this beta program launch that they were going into?
It's called Kajabi.
Kajabi.
Back then, that's how we were all saying it when people would ask us what we were using. And I can't help myself. I still say it that way.
I do.
Kajabi.
Well, back then, it was actually new Kajabi.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Because the team that
I was with them from the very beginning when it was like in beta. It was very raw. Nothing worked. And then it was really like, are you guys going to be around? And they're more than around. They're like the 800-pound gorilla in this space now.
Do you remember coming to the Green Room Mastermind and talking about Kajabi and why you were contemplating moving everything over to it at the time?
I do. Which time?
Well, the time that you actually convinced me to sign up. It's like, Cliff, dude, this beta program, lifetime. Because what people may not know, and I'm going to share now, is I got in under the wire. I think it was within the last 2 weeks that they were offering the beta subscription. And if you get under this beta subscription, you get 10 sites, you get unlimited courses, unlimited products, unlimited contacts, unlimited users, unlimited everything is unlimited for only $1,297 a year, which comes out to approximately $100 a month. And at the time, I'm like, that's a big expense for a monthly thing that I just don't know about yet. But you said some things as far as the reasons why you were considering it. I don't know if you remember what some of those things, what were the initial things that drew you to the potential of using a platform like Kajabi for your online business?
What initially drew me was the idea, this will be hard for people to imagine, I think, but back then, there was no solution for how do I sell my information, my courses, my training, my knowledge, whether it's PDFs or videos or whatever. How do I sell it? How do I have a cash register to take the payment? How does that get into my bank? How do I get them a password? How do I get them into a members area? How do I have a list of who bought and who didn't so I can send different emails to different people? None of that was made so that it all tied together. You had to cobble it all together with different, like even the Zapier. We didn't even have the Zapier thing back then. You had to do some coding. It was a huge hassle for somebody who is not a coder. This was a solution that everything was under one roof. It took care of all that stuff.
The one thing that you said that piqued my curiosity when somebody says, why would you invest this much in an online tool that's brand new? This is the one thing you said, Ray, that piqued my curiosity. It was, I like the idea of a client who purchases one of my products. When they log into my system, they also have, under that same username and that one password, access to all of the products they've purchased from me.
Yes, because this is still a problem with most other systems that I've ever seen, is that you have to have a different username and password for everything you've bought, which is like maddening to the customer.
Yeah.
And I don't want them to have that experience anymore. I wanted them to be able to log in and they have the whole library of what they've bought from me. Not only that, I wanted them to be able to see other things that they might want to buy.
Exactly. The idea of actually seeing, hey, here are the products that I have. Is there a store that shows all the other products on a page that are available for me to purchase? Now, fast forward from 2015, we're here in 2023. There's lots of tools out there for selling your courses. There's lots of tools for collecting payments and doing subscriptions and hosting communities. Quite frankly, there's a handful of services out there that are like Kajabi that will put all of that under one roof, if you will. But you and I got in on Kajabi, and I think there are some reasons why I personally recommend Kajabi. I do want to say right here from the beginning, Ray's like, hey, Cliff, before we get started with this piece of content we're going to create, what's the outcome that you'd like? And I very authentically said, we're going to convince the world to sign up for Kajabi using Cliff's affiliate code. So I just want you to know, if you go to mindsetanswerman.com/Kajabi, you will get some sort of incentive to sign up. Maybe it's 30 days free. I don't know. It could change over time. But again, head over to mindsetanswerman.com/Kajabi. If you use that link and sign up for a free account or a trial account of any kind, or just sign up and start paying, I will get a 30% commission for the lifetime of you using Kajabi. So it is a great way if you want to support the content and things that I've done for you over the years, encouragement and information, insight, entertainment, whatever it's been. mindsetanswerman.com/Kajabi. It's one of the reasons why I'm creating this piece of content today, because I've not done enough to promote my affiliate revenue from that as far as a stream of income. But there are very many reasons why I genuinely do believe that if you are into online business, if you're a coach, a course creator, a membership community facilitator, if you are building a brand, thought leadership, a podcaster, all of these things, I believe Kajabi is, as far as I'm concerned, I'm totally satisfied, the one-stop shop that will fill almost all of your online business needs. Now, Ray, before we begin, I have some stories to share about how I cobbled things together prior to Kajabi. But I was wondering if you could tell me what kind of products and services had you created prior to your use of Kajabi, and how did you cobble it all together?
I had created online courses. I had video courses. I had courses that were way back in the day. We recorded them on teleseminars, if anybody remembers those. We had PDFs. We had manuals. We had all the different things that probably people are using today. But we had no centralized way of putting them into a library. So we used WordPress and WordPress plugins to create a members area. We used a plugin called A Member. I think they're still in operation. You can still buy it and use it if you want to do that. And we linked that together with our merchant account. And we had our email service provider, which at the time was a totally different company. And we had to keep all that synchronized. When I say synchronized, we kept track of what was what in which system and when we needed to employ that to get the thing done. So when I say cobbled together, it really was a bunch of different things, some of which we were paying for and some of which were free. But it was expensive in time and effort and frustration and headache for sure. And I was so glad when Kajabi came along and had this promise of this all-in-one solution. And when I first signed on with them, it was not perfect, but here's one of the reasons I'm still a customer of theirs today. They have developed and improved this system consistently over time. They've been responsive to the needs of their customers, me and you and others. And we say, well, we need this feature now. And then they also left ahead when it, I don't probably get to this later, but they left ahead when it came to AI. So they got you covered there. If one piece of our little system missed a step, it would stop everything. Like the customers would stop getting emails. They'd stop getting billed if it was on a recurring billing basis. If there was a problem with the merchant account, which occasionally things would go snafu with them, it would stop the whole business and it would be a huge fire. We had to call everybody out from the river with buckets to put the fire out and figure out what was going on. And this system gave us a great amount of relief and more peace of mind.
I want to share some of my experience from back in the day. So when I first began creating online courses, I didn't call them online courses. I called them digital products. But I created tutorials. So, hey, here is a video tutorial that shows you step by step how to use Adobe Audition to edit your podcast. And it was a video recording. And it was about an hour to hour and a half in length. Pretty large file.
I bought that, by the way.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Then I had a piece of equipment, a Behringer MDX 4600 compressor limiter gate that nobody knew how to use, including me. But I figured out, after months of trial and error, how to get the exact right sound, the right amount of noise gate. And all I did was literally show my camera and I put a diagram on the screen. This is where you turn all the buttons and knobs. This is where the cables get plugged in. This is what buttons should be in and out.
I bought that too.
I know. I love it. So I had all of these different digital tutorials for purchase. Here are a couple of things that I had back in the day. First and foremost, I had my website where you could go to read about these products. So on my website, it was a page that described the product. Now, that website was hosted using a platform called WordPress. Before Kajabi, WordPress was the thing for me. I loved how super geeky it was. I'm a super geeky person, so I used to use WordPress back in the days before they had one-click installs with cPanels. I literally had to create a database and had to code it and all that other stuff back in the day. I'm that early of an adopter of WordPress. But as WordPress became more and more popular, which at one point I think it's something like 70% of the web was built on WordPress, or I don't know, that might be somewhat hyperbole, but I think it's close to that. And
it was some crazy and big number for sure.
It was a crazy big number. A majority, over half for sure, of the entire internet was built on WordPress, which made it a target for malware. Security issues plagued me night and day in my business. The number of times I woke up to issues in my website won't load, and there's all sorts of errors, and browsers are giving people warnings of malware, and nobody's allowed to load my site because of it's dangerous. And I had to go in and try to weed all of that stuff out of the PHP files, and it was sickening how many times I got hit by that. And of course, you got to keep up with all the security patches and plugin updates and all this other stuff. I mean, it's nearly a full-time job just to keep your WordPress site secure. Now, another issue I had was I was hosting my WordPress website on GoDaddy shared hosting to start with for $4.95 a month. Now, not surprisingly, my website went down occasionally, because it was on a server with maybe thousands and maybe tens of thousands of other websites that were all hosting WordPress websites. And if one site got a big, huge traffic boost, all of the websites, including mine, went down. And then I remember it's like, okay, well, I'm going to move over to something more professional. I'm going to go over to Bluehost. And at the time I went to Bluehost, and it's like $6.97 a month for my shared hosting over there. And it was better for a while, but quite frankly, it was still shared hosting. Shared hosting is definitely not the way to go. So eventually, to solve my WordPress woes, I've finally had to do two things. First, I had to get off of shared hosting. And that's the first thing that I will say. If you're on shared hosting and you're operating an online business that you want to be available consistently, pretty much every day of the week, every hour of the day, get off of shared hosting. For me, that meant to either going to a virtual private server or going to a private server. Now, private servers were more than what I wanted to pay. So I went to a virtual private server where I managed everything for myself for $129 a month. But I still was responsible for my own security, backups, and all this other stuff. And I'm a super geeky person, but the more successful I became in my business, the less time I had for all of that back-end security stuff. And I would let the ball slip, and occasionally things would happen, and it's like, okay, this isn't going to cost me another weekend to get this solved. And meanwhile, before the weekend, my site's unavailable. This is frustrating. So virtual private server. Then I moved over to a friend of mine who offered virtual private server plus, for an added fee, he will manage my backups for my main website, and he will automate the backups and WordPress plugins for all my other sites, because I had multiple WordPress websites. Ultimately, he gave me a really good deal. It was $155 a month just to have a WordPress website, so that somebody else was backing it up and doing, so that if it ever went down, it could be restored. He was doing backups, and he was manually doing the plugin updates on my main site, and he had an automated service doing plugins on the other sites. But that's $155 a month, and that was just the WordPress site, so that my main website, my main page that told you about my tutorial, was available for you to even read about it.
I remember the horror stories during those years. I was going through the same thing. And Lynn, my wife, would know. I would come in and I'd say, the website's down. She'd be like, well, I'll see you in 2 days. We'd be restoring backups, updating all the plugins. It was nightmarish. And it was, like you said, it was constantly something. You had an alert about it. There was a new malware thing that was out there searching for sites to take down. It was just a constant stress. And I remember paying this for the same kind of service where somebody would do automatic backups, plug-in updates. Still had problems, fewer of them. But not only was there the cost that you had to pay for all this stuff, there's the cost in time and energy and stress and never knowing for sure if everything was going to work. So it was a real, not just a perceived, but a real problem.
Yeah,
that many of us faced.
Absolutely. And I just want to stress that so far, when I finally got to a viable solution that was working well, I was at $155 a month, and all I had was a website for that. So now let's just say you got to my website and you're browsing through and you see products in the nav menu, and then there's a list of products and you click on one of them, which is, by the way, which was a page, and then you click on that, which is now another page dedicated to a specific product. Let's just say it was my Adobe Audition 101 video training tutorial that you could purchase for $100. So now all of that was on WordPress, but there was a little buy now button, and that little buy now button was through a third-party company called eJunkie. Do you remember eJunkie?
Oh my gosh, the worst name ever for a payment service, but I used them. Yes, I do remember them quite well.
And my issue back in the day was eJunkie only worked with PayPal. So the only way you could pay me was via PayPal. And of course, PayPal didn't even have a great reputation back then. It still doesn't have a great reputation today, but the only way you could pay me was via PayPal. And I paid an extra fee for that. And if I'm not mistaken, I think I chose them because they didn't charge me a percentage of my sale. So there were other solutions that were probably better, had better names, and gave me the option to do credit cards. But even credit cards back in the day, I just remember credit card processing was super difficult to get because you had to go through a merchant account, and then there was the payment processing fee. You had to commit to a minimum number of sales per month. There was merchant counts were just a nightmare at the time. Do you have any experience with that?
Yeah, it was very difficult to get one. I remember I had to fill out a multi-page legal form and fax it to the bank and then have a phone conversation with an officer at the bank to get approval. And they kept asking me, what kind of business do you have? You're selling what online? They did not even understand how the internet worked. So it was very difficult back then. I mean, I know this all sounds like, man, you guys are old or something, but it wasn't that long ago. And it still can be a complex web to navigate, trying to get all this solved and synchronized together until you find the right tool that does it for you.
Yeah. So the point here is that for me to be able to collect payments and to have a shopping cart, I had to have a third-party solution. And of course, one of those third-party solutions could have been to use another plugin on my WordPress website. But even then, I needed to have some sort of payment processor. So there had to be some third-party additional something or other, which, by the way, often came with a monthly fee. So keep that all in mind. And then it's like, okay, now you've come to my website, you've clicked a payment, and I was able to use JavaScript to make it look like you're always on my website, even though you're processing through eJunkie. All of that stuff has happened. But now what happens? Well, I had it return and I had it go to another landing page that says you've successfully you've successfully done this. Go check your email. Now that email was sent by eJunkie. All right. But eJunkie is nothing more than a payment processing service limited to PayPal that then would send an email confirmation afterwards. Now, you could customize that email to say whatever you want. But then what I had to do is I had to make sure that eJunkie's email that's automated, that's sent to you, that says, thank you for your purchase of WordPress for Podcasters. Here's the details on how you access it. But how do I deliver this video to you? So what I did is I actually went over to Vimeo Plus, which I paid another monthly fee, and I was limited to 5 gigabytes of video upload per month in HD. So I had a very hard limit of how much content I could create and host on their servers, but at least I was able to do this, and I was able to make that unaccessible to the web, and I could do embed only in a private website. Then I had to reach out, Ray, to a friend of mine who knew PHP coding, and he hand-coded what was essentially, I know how to do an HTML site from scratch, but HTML is open to the world. So he says, Cliff, let me take that and instead turn it into a PHP password-protected site. And I will show you how you can duplicate this, and you could create and change the password for each one of these products that you have. So what I did is I then had to go to my web host and upload a PHP file that when you type in the password for that particular page for WordPress for Podcasters, then it will display everything that was coded into the page. And then it would actually just have all the text that I coded, and it would have all of the parts, like part 1 of 6, part 2 of 6, part 3 of 6. All of these Vimeo videos are embedded into this page. So I had to do all of that. And then you've gone to my website, you've clicked to buy, you've got the email, and eJunkie says, "Hey, Ray, thank you for your purchase. Click this link and use this password." Which, by the way, at that point, Ray, you may have an audience of 10,000 people who are your private members of whatever program, and you could say, "Hey, guys, this is an amazing program. I just purchased it for $97 from Cliff Ravenscraft. Just go ahead and use my link. It's right here, and here's the password to get in." Done. Not that Ray would do that, but there's some folks out there that might. The issue is that every single client who ever bought that product, and I think I sold over $100,000 of that particular tutorial, every single person who purchased that prior to Kajabi, all of them had the same link to the same website with the same password. Whew. That was my days before Kajabi.
Yeah, that sounds pretty secure. He said sarcastically. I had the same thing. I had a big members area with one password for every single person. I didn't tell them that, of course, but some of them were smart enough to figure it out.
Yeah.
Not ideal.
And then I had 9 separate tutorials. And I think you purchased almost all of them back in the day, as did many of my clients. But the thing is if you purchase 9 video tutorials from me, you've got to keep those emails somewhere, because the only way you're going to be able to find it is to click on each of those individual URLs with that email, with that password, so that you can get into it. And there was no logging into one page and then seeing all of the products you've purchased from me. And when you said that it's like, wow, that would be amazing. All right, so let's talk about how Kajabi has simplified the game for online business owners. So first, we've talked about, I want to say this about Kajabi, because in fact, one of the reasons why I'm creating this, I have a member of the Train with Cliff audio journal program. He says, "Hey, Cliff, would you be willing to do a podcast episode where you talk about the benefits and drawbacks of the investment of Kajabi for your online portal for everything that you're doing?" And I said, yes, I would love to do that. I've been meaning to do more things to promote my affiliate commissions on Kajabi anyway, and it's a total no-brainer. I've been a user of Kajabi since November 2015, and I absolutely love it. So I want to just start by saying this. The pricing on Kajabi as of today, and this is October 2023, prices can go up, of course. There are currently 3 different plans. The basic plan is $119 a month. I would encourage you to forego that one. And the only reason why is because that plan actually has Kajabi branding on it. If you want to be an online business owner and not promote anything other than your business and your products, start with the middle plan, which is the growth plan at $159 a month. You get a bunch of additional features, such as 15 products instead of 3. You get 10,000 active users instead of 1,000 active users. You get 25,000 contacts instead of a limit of 10,000. You get 15 pipelines instead of 3. But the big thing is you don't have Kajabi branding anywhere on your website. If that's not a big deal to you and you're just getting started, by all means, start out with the 119. These prices that I'm giving you it comes out to 119 or 159 a month. And these are all if you pay annually. And I encourage you to pay annually. You save a lot of money. So the growth plan today is $159 a month if you pay annually, which is, I think, comes out to $1,908. If you pay monthly, I think it's $199 a month. So that's $40 a month you save if you pay annually. So it's definitely worth paying annually. Now, what I want to get at here, and I would recommend that you start with the growth plan, the medium plan. And if you ever outgrow it, you need more than 15 products, by all means, go up to the $319 a month plan so you can upgrade to 100 products. But almost everyone I know in online business can get by on the $159 a month plan. And here's the biggest concern most people have when it comes to thinking about signing up for Kajabi. $159 a month? Are you kidding me? Do you know how many subscriptions I have? And I just want to remind you, if you're paying anything less than about $150 a month for your website alone, you are not taking your website seriously. You are not taking
Amen.
You do not think of your website, your online business, as a serious business if you're paying less than $150 a month just for your website alone.
100% agree, because look, if you think, well, I don't know, I'm not sure I'm going to make more than $150 a month. You're not thinking of a business, you're thinking of a hobby. And any business that you're going to start or that you're running currently that you want to make more than a couple $100 a month, if you want to make your living, if you want to make $100,000 a year or more, or $50,000 a year, these are not inconsequential, but they're very reasonable and customary expenses. And this is a better value than I'll say than any website builder you're going to find anywhere. I know you have more thoughts on that, Cliff, but I really agree with that. Anybody who balks at $159 a month to do everything Kajabi does, you either don't understand or you don't take it seriously.
Yeah, this is why I'm actually speaking about Kajabi is my recommendation for online business owners, people who have a business online. If you have a hobby online, by all means, share host it away, Squarespace it away, Wixly it away, all of those other tools out there, all of those are great. No judgment here. But if it's a business, definitely go with something. If you're going to use WordPress for your business website, number one, you better keep it up to date. Like literally once a day, every day, check to see if you've got security plugin updates every single day of your life, or pay somebody else to do it.
I just want to underline the importance of that. We have friends, one friend in particular had her website hacked, and one day she woke up and it was completely taken over by some gambling or something worse than that. And they were holding the website hostage. They wanted like $100,000 to get the website back. It was a huge issue, and it all sprang from WordPress and security.
Yeah. And well, you and I and several members of our mastermind group, and I won't name which member of our mastermind group it is, but do you remember when one of the members of the Green Room Mastermind had their website down for 2 weeks?
Yes, I do.
And that was on servant hosting, virtual private server at $129 a month. But back then, we're still responsible for our own security plugin updates. And well, it was not good. So yes. So the first thing that I would say about this $159 a month for the growth plan of Kajabi, if you have a business, your website alone is worth $159. For the uptime, the fact that Kajabi, this is all they do. They make sure that you're up and running. They are consistently working on the security of their site. They have an entire team of people who are working on that security. You have no plugins that you need to update. Matter of fact, since November 2015, Ray, I've never once even thought for a second, is there anything related to security that I need to update on the back end? It's never even come up as a thought.
I've had Kajabi. I don't know when I originally signed up. It was when they started the company. I've never had a security problem. I've never had a website downtime problem. Never.
And then, so there's that. And then the next thing I want to say is, because I moved to Kajabi, now it took me, 2015, 2020 is 5 years. It took me 7 years before I finally canceled my virtual private server and I deleted all of my WordPress websites. By the way, I still have one WordPress website on a shared hosting server. So the same friend who basically did, I think it was $155 a month for my virtual private server, and he was managing all that stuff. I said, hey, I haven't used any of these WordPress websites. They're useless to me more now. I need to keep one for one plugin, and it's called Pretty Links. I need to make sure that when somebody goes to mindsetanswerman.com/Kajabi, it sends them to a specific URL that's my affiliate code. That's the only thing I need WordPress for. And I said, can we move down to shared hosting for that? And can you do this? And it took me from $155 a month to $17.95 a month. So, which is awesome. So the first thing that Kajabi has done, it took me years to wean myself off of WordPress, but my entire home page is on there. Every landing page is on Kajabi. Every sales page is on. Every piece of content that I have related to my business website is 100% in Kajabi. No longer anything to do with WordPress anymore.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yep.
There was a lot of sites and pages you moved.
Yes. The next one I will say is online courses. Now, that's what Kajabi started out as. It's like, hey, if you have an online course, then Kajabi's your place, right? So the first thing that I did is I began taking all of those Vimeo videos. I got the original recordings and I uploaded them into courses or products inside of Kajabi, and immediately started to move my database of customers over. And I created accounts and I sent them a password and I said, hey, for the first time ever, remember how you purchased all of these videos? You now can sign in. You have an account at cliffravenscraft.com. Here's your username. Here's your password. And when you log in, you will see all of your products in one place. Boom. And they loved it.
Loved it. Yeah. Universally, that's always the reaction.
Yep. And by the way, if you go and buy a course, you have your username, you have your password, and it's different from everyone else's username and password. And I get to see how
Kajabi does it automatically.
And Kajabi does it automatically. And I can actually see how often you're logging in. And I not to mention the fact I get to see the progress you're making. One of my favorite things is I have this Free the Dream online course, by the way, over at freethedreamcourse.com. If you go to freethedreamcourse.com and buy that course, when you're watching the videos, at the end of every video, I get an email that says you finished another video. I didn't get that before. This is amazing. So, and I set it up to do that. You can turn those off and turn those on at will. But anyway, they do online courses. And the other thing that I love about Kajabi, did you know, Ray, and I know you know, unlimited file storage?
Yeah. Pause on that, folks, and think about this because Cliff's about to explain to you what that means. It's a huge, huge deal.
Unlimited file storage means that if your course has 65 hours worth of HD video content, which comes out to 3.5 terabytes of video files, that's fine. The only thing is I think each individual video upload is limited. It started out at 2 gigs. Is it up to 4 gigs now because of the advancement? It's still reasonable. I
honestly don't know. They always keep it reasonable, and it's one of the best and most underspoken of values of being on Kajabi that there is.
Yeah. So you could literally create one course, one product, and you could put 1,000 videos in there. There is no limit to file storage. And get this, there is no limit, no metering on bandwidth. Can you explain bandwidth, Ray?
No, I'm going to have to let you explain that.
All right. So bandwidth is how many gigabytes of data is being... So let's just say I have one video that is a gigabyte in size. So that's it. So basically, if I have a limit of 10 gigabytes of file storage per month, then I can only upload 10 of those 1 gigabyte videos. So that's file storage. But I may have 100 gigabytes of bandwidth limitation on some servers and services. So if I have, let's just say 5 students buy my course, and that course has one video that's 1 gigabyte in size. So when they watch the entire video, streaming bandwidth taken up is 1 entire gigabyte, was bandwidth exchanged between my server and that one student. But if all 5 students, that one gigabyte video has now bandwidth transfer of 5 gigabytes. Now, if those 5 students watch those videos 5 times, that's 25 gigabytes of bandwidth. Now, add 15 students, 30 students, 100 students,
1,000.
And now bandwidth is going out the roof. And what happens is with some services, you get billed extra for bandwidth. Not with Kajabi. Unlimited bandwidth.
You know why I couldn't explain it?
Why?
It's never been a problem for me.
It has been a problem for me. Do you know my first podcast, this is back in the day, speaking of bandwidth issues, bandwidth was a problem for me day one. It was December 2005, Ray. I launched my very first ever podcast to the world, thinking nobody's ever going to listen to this thing. So I put it out. It's all about the TV show Lost. I wake up the next morning and I load up my website and it says server suspended, bandwidth exceeded, contact support. I'm like, what the heck happened? Well, Entertainment Weekly heard my podcast, did an article, and sent hundreds of thousands of people to my site. And I was hosting my 35 megabyte, get this, 35 megabyte MP3 file on my web host.
And it took you down.
And I got a bill for $3,500 for it.
Yeah. I said it was never a problem for me. What I should have said is, to be completely honest, since I got on Kajabi, we did have problems before that. And this would happen typically when somebody huge like Michael Hyatt actually was once responsible for taking my site down, because he mentioned me on his blog, and all these people came in at once, and I had a lower priced hosting plan, shared hosting, and site was down.
Yeah.
But that's one of the most amazing things that Kajabi does that people don't realize, is that you have this instantly expandable number of people that can be watching your content, whether free or paid, and it doesn't matter how many videos, and there's never a problem. There's never a hitch. These are things you don't have to even know about, let alone worry about.
The other thing I just want to talk about is when I say unlimited file storage, that also includes unlimited images on your website, high quality images, PDF documents, ebooks that you want to give to people, all of that. You could store all of that inside of Kajabi. Unlimited storage. The other thing that they have, and it's been a relatively new feature as of about 3 or 4 years ago, is podcasting. Now, they didn't know who they were giving a beta account to with unlimited products when they made that offer to Cliff Ravenscraft. But I will just happen to say, I happen to know one Kajabi user who has 50 podcast shows with 4,700 podcast episodes loaded onto a single Kajabi account. I'm not going to say who that person is.
But this feature has been put to the ultimate test, and it passed with flying colors.
It has. And that person might be me, but I will tell you, because I am on that beta program that Ray convinced me to, yes, Cliff, sign up for this. Even if you wait a year or two before you finally get around to using it, which I did, by the way. I owned Kajabi for 18 months, paying $1,297 a year before I ever used it for the first time. But anyway, what I will say this is that podcasting, and it is audio podcasting, it's not video podcasting. Kajabi is not a full-featured, full functionality podcast host. So you're not going to, you do get basic, you obviously get MP3 file hosting. I think it's a limit of 250 megabytes per MP3 file episode, which is way more than enough. You could actually compress a 5-hour podcast episode in under 250 megabytes. And you could do super high quality, high sample rate, everything, 1 hour podcast and never get anywhere close to 250 megabytes per episode. But there's no limit on how many episodes. I literally have 50 podcasts. In all 50 podcast shows, I could upload a 1 hour podcast episode and publish it once an hour, every hour, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and there would be no limit on the number of files uploaded to my podcast and no limit on the bandwidth transfer to all the people downloading around the world.
If there's ever a question in my mind about whether I could rely on Kajabi to host my podcast, it was just answered by you explaining, because I said jokingly, you put it to the ultimate test, but I wasn't joking. You really did have put it to the ultimate test. I do have a question for you, though.
Yeah, go right ahead.
You said it's not a full-featured podcast host. First of all, what do you mean by that? And secondly, and more important to my thinking about this, why is that okay with you? Why are you fine with putting all your podcasts on Kajabi?
Yeah, so
those are not quote, full-featured.
Yeah, this is great questions. So the first reason why it's not a full-featured podcast host is that it can only host MP3 files. So if I was with Simplecast or Libsyn or a multitude of other podcast hosts, if I wanted to, I could drop a PDF file into my podcast feed. Or I could drop a video file into my podcast feed. Or I could drop maybe somewhere between 3 to 5 or even 8 different types of audio formats other than MP3. For example, M4A is very popular. So there's a lot of other audio format files, video files, and PDFs that I could include if it was a full-blown podcast support host, whereas Kajabi thinks of podcasts as audio only, and they think of audio-only podcast as MP3 audio-only podcast. Now, that could change at some point in the future, but right now, as far as I'm concerned, when I converted all of my shows over, there were about 75 video files that did not transfer over. And all I did is I went and created an audio file that says, "Hi, this is Cliff Ravenscraft. If you're hearing my voice, that means you've clicked on a podcast episode that's in the archive of the podcast that you're subscribed to that was once a video file. That video file is no longer available here. However, if the show notes and title of this episode was appealing to you, email me at cliff@cliffravenscraft.com and tell me. And I'll either dig out the video out of my archives or I'll create a new one for you. I can't wait to hear from you. Until next time, take everything you do to the next level." And then I uploaded that to all those 75 episodes.
Who goes to that length to make sure your customers, listeners are taken care of? You're one of the very few people in the world who would have done that. I love that about you. That's amazing.
It was a 3.5 month transition for me to get all 50 podcast transfers over. And that was many hours a day and included several weekends. But it was worth it. So now, what else is not full featured? Another thing that I miss from my other podcast host days is that you cannot embed images in your show notes for a podcast episode. So if you go to thecliffravenscraftshow.com, by the way, that'll take you to my page for the Cliff Ravenscraft Show, which is one podcast page of many podcast pages that I have. And you'll notice in the show notes, you'll never see an image embedded into the show notes. That's a limitation. Now, what I can say is that it probably did it for keeping the size of the RSS feed as low as possible, whatever the case may be. That's pretty important for quick load times on podcast apps. I do miss that functionality. Now, how have I worked around it? Not a big deal. Anytime I would normally include an image in my show notes, all I would do is say, click here to see the image, or click here to see an example, or click here for this. I could upload that to any other place inside of Kajabi, get the hyperlinked URL, and then just link to it. So that's one option. Or I just put in a Dropbox shared folder and I just put the Dropbox link into it. But either way works. But I will say that that's a limitation. It's one that that I'm glad you're asking. What does that mean to not have full podcast functionality support? Then there were two other I thought were significant issues. I think at the time when I first looked at moving things over, I'm pretty sure there was a 300 episode limit per podcast feed. This is not a big deal for your casual podcaster. But with, I just published I think I'm getting ready to publish episode number 712 of the Cliff Ravenscraft Show. I've got several shows that have, let's just say, more than 300 episodes. And it's kind of frustrating to say, hey, here's the most recent 300 episodes, but anything prior to that, you don't have access to. I personally reached out to Kajabi and I said, listen, I would love to move this over. I'd love to start promoting my affiliate program. And they're like, we'd love for you to do that. I'm like, great, here's a couple of things that I need you to fix. And one was to remove this limit of 300. And I wanted them to go to unlimited. And I showed them, it's like, listen, one of my clients, John Lee Dumas, he's been podcasting. He's got 3,700, blah, blah, blah. And here's my podcast app, and it shows me I have access to all of them. I want that. They said, we'll see what we can do. They came back and they said, Cliff, by the way, they were willing to do it for me personally, just one-on-one. If it's okay, Cliff, we'll do it for you. We'll make it unlimited for all of your for all your podcasts on your sites on Kajabi. I said, well, that won't be good enough because I want to be able to have my experience shared by everyone else. He says, well, let me go back to the dev team. And he says, here's what we've done. We've coded it to where everybody can have up to 1,000 episodes in any podcast feed on Kajabi. I said,
thank you, Cliff.
You're welcome. I said, that's awesome. I'll be in touch with you in 300 episodes. So that was another one. And then the final thing, I said, listen, as far as I'm concerned, I'm going to move over to Kajabi. I'm already doing this. I will not tell anybody to sign up for Kajabi to host their podcast unless you actually turn on podcast feed redirect. Because if somebody decides Kajabi's not for them, they need to be able to take and move their podcast to a different host. And then they need to be able to say, hey, if anybody tries to come to the Kajabi feed for that podcast episode, they need to be pointed to the new destination. And you don't have that functionality. You can't call yourself a podcast host if you don't have that. I will promote Kajabi for all its awesomeness other than podcasting, but I will not mention podcasting as a feature unless you put that in. They built that in for me.
Thank you again, Cliff. I was just going to say, these are the reasons why I know that it's a trustworthy place to host your podcast, only because I was never going to do all this research and pushing back. But when you did it, I knew Cliff is taking care of it for all of us.
Yep.
So when I say thank you, I mean it.
I know you do, and I appreciate it. And then there's one other thing that not all, by the way, this doesn't keep them from being a full-blown podcast host, because there's lots of podcast hosts that don't offer this advanced functionality, but a lot of people seem to be very interested in throwing tons of ads into their podcast. I still don't get it. I don't judge them for it. I skip their ads and I deal with the inconvenience of it. But a lot of people are really interested in doing dynamic ad insertion. Kajabi doesn't have that functionality. I don't need it, and so it's one of the reasons why it wasn't a bother for me. Now, given the fact that lots of things that I thought I would never do in my business, I actually now do today and see the value of it. And I'm like, okay, I've shifted the way I think about that. If I ever decide to do ad insertion, because they built in feed redirect, I can now move over to a company that does dynamic ad insertion, and one click of a button, or actually one paste of the new URL and a click of a button, and boom, Bob's your uncle. For some reason, he's everybody's uncle in the UK. But anyway, Bob's your uncle, and now I've got dynamic ad insertion on all my podcasts. But anyway, podcasting. So that immediately saves you another $15 to $30 a month. And of course, if you take the growth plan, you have 15 products. If you have 3 courses and 2 coaching programs, you could have five different podcast shows. And unlike other media or podcast hosts where you pay $15 for this one podcast, but if you want to launch a second podcast, it's another $15 a month. If you want to launch a third podcast, it's another $15 a month. No, a podcast is a product in Kajabi. So because I have unlimited products, I could launch one podcast a day, 365 days a year. And maybe one year I'll do that.
I don't take that as hyperbole. I know it's possible.
Awesome.
For most of us, we won't need that many, but yep. I know that you could do it.
And if you're thinking, Cliff, why did you even bring that up? There's no reason I'd ever have more than one podcast. I dare you to email me. My email address is cliff@cliffravenscraft.com, and just ask me the question, why would I ever want more than one podcast? And then I will tell you something that will blow your mind. Okay.
Okay,
So-
that's a cool trick you just did there. I love that. I'm going to send you that email and see what happens.
Awesome. I love it. So the next thing I want to mention is payment processing. Obviously, I'm not using eJunkie anymore. Of course, Stripe makes it easy for anyone to take credit card payments these days. And Kajabi integrates with Stripe. It does integrate with PayPal. And Kajabi just this year, launched Kajabi Payments. Not only that, but they offer coupons. They offer, with Kajabi Payments, you can now do Google Pay and Apple Pay. And I will tell you, it is a guarantee that if you offer Apple Pay, you get more sales. Hands down, you get more sales. All of the stats, and it's not just Kajabi's research that shows this. I follow a lot of technology. Matter of fact, the number of Instagram ads or TikTok ads or anything else, if I see it and if I go to the page, how much is this? And I see, I've got to fill out my credit card with this really wonky third, crazy product and blah, blah, blah. And I'm going to put my credit card and trust them to have that on file. No, but I see if I see pay with Apple Pay, boom, $49, scan my face, off to the races, baby. So. Yep. Imagine that. You get Apple Pay, Google Pay, Stripe, all of those things. They do one-click upsells. Abandoned cart recovery is built in. You can turn that on. You can set up payment plans. They even announced pay later is now a thing where you can actually say, my course is $2,000. And you could choose pay later or pay later or payment plan. And they could choose to pay in 4 or 6 payments. But that's a third-party provider. As the creator of the content, as the business owner, I get the full payment, and that agreement is between them and that vendor. So that's becoming a thing today. You can do subscriptions, which I've got lots of subscriptions for the Next Level Mastermind and a lot of other one-on-one payment subscriptions. And I just logged in this week to my Kajabi account, and they had one of those pop up, hey, do you have time for a quick survey about a future product thing we're considering? On a scale of 1 to 10, how important is it for you to be able to send invoices to your customers? And I'm like, if they're at the place where they're asking that, my only assumption is that I'm going to be able to start using my Kajabi to send invoices to my clients, which is amazing because right now what I'm doing is I go in and somebody buys something that I would normally send an invoice for, and I go into Kajabi and I create an offer for that price and then send them a link to the checkout page to that offer. It's not a big deal. I don't have to do that. I could just go into Stripe and send an invoice. But one of the things that I like about Kajabi is I go in and I log in and I pull up Ray Edwards and I see lifetime value of a client. And if I was to send you invoices using a different invoice system, then you may have paid me thousands of dollars for other miscellaneous things that I invoiced you for. But when I log into your account inside of Kajabi, that lifetime value of this customer, how much have they paid me since they've been a customer, that doesn't account for all of those other things. And I want all of that in one place. So that's another thing I like. Anything else to add on that, Ray?
No, that's very thorough. That last thing you mentioned is super important. We're in the marketing business of teaching marketing to marketers. So we have a number of different systems we use. I just want to point out, I believe in Kajabi so much. We've used it from the beginning. We still use it. I just had my accountant pull this number up for me. We've processed $2,619,053 in purchases through Kajabi. That doesn't count the other systems that we use, the invoicing system and so forth, but $2.6 million through Kajabi. I think it'll work for most folks. If you're not yet making more than 2.6 million, this has got you covered. And I know people who have, by the way, $100 million business who run it completely out of Kajabi. So I don't think you're going to outgrow it anytime soon.
I'm just now looking right now. I have processed $1,483,643.20 through Kajabi so far.
Bingo.
let's rush through the last few things here, and this is the big one that I want to hear because this is a big deal. Now, when Kajabi first started, you've said it a handful of times, they had a lot of things that they needed to iron out, and email marketing was not their forte at the time, as far as an email marketing tool to do your email newsletters and sequences, and things have changed.
Back in that time, there was no way, but now it is so different. Well, I'll just tell you my experience. Recently, we moved our email marketing, all of it, from a big expensive company. We were paying almost $1,000 a month just to host our email list. And it's not a huge email list, but it was very important to us. Now, guess how much we pay?
Nothing additional above what you were already paying for Kajabi.
Correct. That is correct.
That is, and now here's the situation. I still pay $79. I have a much smaller list. I still pay $79 a month to ConvertKit just because I'm a one-person team. I have a lot of investment in the automations and systems that are built inside of there. I could literally take an entire weekend, make it like a 3-day weekend out of the prospect of moving everything from ConvertKit and putting it into Kajabi and doing all of that stuff. I have zero desire to do it. In fact, I'm more than happy to pay $79 a month to avoid doing it. But if I were new to online business and I didn't have this set up already, Kajabi can definitely handle it. If it can handle Ray Edwards' email marketing for his online business, it can handle yours.
That is truth, because I send a lot of email marketing.
Yes, you do.
And by the way, the deliverability on Kajabi is outstanding.
Yeah.
Outstanding.
Stop it. I don't want to do it, Ray. I don't want to do it.
Just saying.
I know. Who on your team did it for you? Because I know you didn't do that.
No, I didn't do any of it.
I know. And yeah. Anyway, that it's still a little pain point. But to think about this, that I am paying $79 a month for a service that I don't need.
Look, if I had only been paying $79 a month, I probably still wouldn't have done it either.
Yeah,
but when it was $1,000 a month, I'm like, I think it's worth doing.
Yeah, I totally agree. All right, so I never signed up for those other services like lead pages and stuff like that, but there are landing page templates that have been optimized for sales and things of that nature. I think those ran somewhere as low as $49 a month, as much as $99 or more per month. And Kajabi has an incredible page builder in it, and they have tons of templates that are optimized for good marketing standards of practice or whatever you call it.
Yeah, for sure. And they developed some things they call pipelines. Other people may call them funnels. But any systematic, automated approach to marketing you want to do, like if you want to do a product launch with multiple videos, those kinds of things, you just push a button and Kajabi cranks one out for you. It looks very professional. You just fill in the blanks. They've even made filling in the blanks easier these days.
Yep. They've also did live streaming. So you can actually do live streaming inside of Kajabi. So you can create a pipeline of a live stream event that you want to do where only people who are members of your site have access. They log in, they tune into your live stream that you're doing, your webinar, if you will. It's hosted right there. Replays are in there, all built in, all the email reminders. It's all built in, automated. All you have to do is say, I want to do a thing. What's the name of the event? What date? Sure. We will send an email 2 weeks before, 1 week before, 3 days before, 3 hours before, 1 hour before, 5 minutes before, and we'll send a follow-up, this date, and it's all built in. It's all done for you. And guess what? You don't need a Zoom account.
I didn't even realize that. That's true.
Yep. And they also just recently, in the past 2 or so years, I have not played with it yet. I have several clients that are coaches that are using it. They have coaching as a product. And they're working on adding group coaching as a product. And again, Yet another service you don't need. You do not need Zoom. You could actually do your live coaching, and all the recordings are instantly available and stored in that client's files. Notes are in there, all of that stuff. You're saying you use the coaching program. Tell me about your experience with it.
Yeah, we love it. It's very simple, but it has only the essential features. So your client can log in, see their next appointment on a calendar.
Oh, yeah, scheduling. You don't need Calendly or Acuity scheduling. That's another monthly service you can cancel.
Exactly. It's got all the essential features for managing. If you do any one-on-one coaching, this is perfect for that.
Yeah. And then, of course, there is affiliate program tracking. So one of the things you may want to do is say, hey, if you will help me get the word out about how my awesome product can serve the people that you know, I'm willing to give you a percentage or a flat fee per sale that you bring my way. All you do is you go in and sign up for an affiliate account in my program, and you get your link to promote. And anybody who signs up using your link, I will pay you a commission as I get paid. And guess what? All of that is built into Kajabi. It's yet another very expensive monthly fee that you can avoid. And it's all built inside of Kajabi. All you do is log in each month, see the report, and click a button, and everybody gets paid via PayPal.
Yep. You truly have one dashboard to control your entire business, including your affiliate program.
Yep. And then the last thing I'll mention, one of the favorite things that I have, they have incredible, if you do the growth or the pro plan, you get chat and email support. There's an option, you can pay extra if you want phone support. I've never needed phone support ever, but you get chat and email support. They're both great, but I almost never go to chat or email support. If I've ever needed anything, I go to Facebook, and they have a group. It's called Official Kajabi Hero Community. 44.5 thousand members.
And very active.
Very active. And this community of people are the most supportive people. Let me jump on a call. Share your screen. I'll help you work that out. Let's get this done. It's just nonstop support. So a company that has 44.5 thousand of their clients, and you know that's not even all their clients, but 44.5 thousand said, listen, I want to be in this community of other people who are online business owners like me using this service. That is amazing. So, Ray, we could probably go on for 2 or 3 more hours about why Kajabi is freaking amazing. And it is absolutely at $159 a month, paying annually, of course, is a total no-brainer. Forget everything we've talked about. If your website alone is worth being up pretty much 24/7, 7 days a week, that alone is a reason enough to go to Kajabi.
It's a great value. You get everything we've talked about and more. There's so much more. So, I tell people, especially anybody who's starting their new business, or maybe you haven't been in business very long, you want to get on a platform that does all the things you want it to do, you need it to do to run your business. This is my answer for everybody. You can do this. If you're a team of one, you got everything covered.
Absolutely. All right. If you are ready to take the plunge and cancel all those other third-party solutions and get off your shared hosting and Squarespaces and Wixly sites, and you're ready to start taking things seriously, head over to mindsetanswerman.com/Kajabi, Kajabi, mindsetanswerman.com/Kajabi. If you use that link, you don't pay anything extra, but I will earn a 30% commission for the lifetime of your Kajabi account. And every month when my commission check comes in, and I do get a commission check every month from Kajabi, I will think of you and appreciation. mindsetanswerman.com/Kajabi. Ray Edwards, I love you, brother.
I love you too.
Thank you so much for convincing me to pull the plug on this amazing program back in November 2015. It has been a total game changer for me, and I couldn't be more happy to be a Kajabi user today, and I have you to thank for it.
That warms my heart. Thank you, my friend.
My pleasure. All right, with that being said, my friends, wait! Who the heck did that? Wait a second, will you? Wait a second, it was me. Ray, before we go, I want to give you the opportunity. Market and promote anything you want.
ClarityScribe.com. It's our copywriting and content creation AI that we developed. You can get in and try it out. All the features, unlimited for free. No credit card required. Try it out. ClarityScribe.com.
Well, there you go, my friend. That was my conversation with Ray Edwards on why Kajabi is the perfect all-in-one solution for those who have a desire to build or to continue to grow an online business. If you plan on offering online courses, if you plan on doing email marketing, if you plan on doing sales funnels and automations, if you plan on offering coaching, if you have plans of hosting, and this is one thing we didn't even include in our conversation, but if you have a desire to host a membership with an online community, I know there's a lot of buzz these days about Mighty Networks and Circle. Well, those are additional monthly fees for services that do great things, wonderful functionality. And just like email marketing, this was not something that was a part of Ray and myself. It wasn't a part of our experience with Kajabi because they didn't have anything for an online community. But a couple of years ago, they began to develop their own version of an online community, and it was pretty decent. One of the things that I love about Kajabi is they always bring in and allow people to volunteer to be beta users. I was one of them in their online community product. It was not a great solution. They got that feedback. They went and purchased a service, a company out there that was like Circle, like Mighty Networks, and then they purchased that entire product and rolled it into Kajabi. And I've been in the beta program for this. I think it's now out of beta, but they are consistently adding functionality, tweaking things, because there are people who are migrating their Circle communities and Mighty Network communities and other various communities out of those other third-party systems into Kajabi. And those who had actively grown communities in those other platforms are saying, hey, this is great, except for fill in the blank. And I'm just watching the dialogue happen back and forth. And of course, I'm in that beta program, even though I'm not hosting a paid community inside of that part of the platform. I am getting notifications every single week of all of the updates, all of the requested features that they're implementing. And I watched this entire process with their email marketing over the years, and to know that Kajabi is on it. This is why, as if you're a content creator, if you're just a creator, a creative entrepreneur, podcaster, all of this stuff, this is amazing. Everything I've talked about. Anyway, I just wanted to wrap up and just say, if you haven't done so already, if you've been listening through to this entire episode and you're still hearing my voice right now, that has to mean something. You're probably on the verge of signing up for Kajabi. And at $159 a month, which is what the product pricing is for the growth plan in October of 2023. But even whatever the price becomes, if nothing else, a website for your business that is always online is worth the price of this product alone. And it's not just your website. It is unlimited landing pages. It is unlimited templates to create all of those things. And then with the growth plan, 15 different paid products. And that's a lot that you can do with 15 products. You could have 3 to 5 podcasts. And again, if you haven't emailed me yet, Cliff, why would I ever want more than one podcast? Cliff@cliffravenscraft.com. But anyway, you've heard enough. It's up to you now. Are you ready to make the plunge? If you are ready to make the plunge, if you're ready to pull the trigger and you want to try out Kajabi, I encourage you, I ask you to consider using my affiliate link. It does not cost you anything extra. It's just a way that you can consistently moving forward for as long as you use your Kajabi account to benefit you and your growing online business. It's a great way to say, Cliff, I'm thankful that you answered all of those questions I had about Kajabi. It's your way of saying, Cliff, thank you so much for all of the years and years and years of inspiration and insight and encouragement and inspiration to start my online business or to take this online business into a new trajectory. If you want to do that, if you go over to mindsetanswerman.com/Kajabi, I will earn a 30% commission for the lifetime of your account. So again, the link one more time, and it's in the show notes as well, mindsetanswerman.com/Kajabi. Until next time, I encourage you to take everything you do to the next level.
Mindset Answer Man.